This video is about offer presentation because right now it's a frustrating time in the market. There's low supply, there's high demand, and that leads to multiple offers. So you have buyers submitting offers and sometimes not hearing back from the listing agent or seller, which is frustrating. And buyers get frustrated because they're making multiple offers that are getting rejected or annoyed. And the buyer's agent gets frustrated because it makes them look like they're not doing a good job if they're repeatedly losing out on multiple bid offers or if the listing agent's not responding. So we have right here in front of us a quick guide on offer presentation by California Association of Realtors. And I'm just going to loosely skim through this. I don't want to just read text. That would be very boring. I'm going to put this document on the website and I'll link to it in the description. This actually overlaps some other documents, Code of Ethics, and I'll put all these documents on the website and link to it. But this is the NAR Code of Ethics, which is adopted by the state and local associations and referenced in this quick guide. There's also the essentially best practices for the MLS. I have the MLS Rules and Procedures booklet here for the largest MLS in the US, but they're very much all similar because they all follow kind of the same best practices guidelines for MLSs. And you might ask, well, what does this have to do with offer presentation? I'll explain shortly. Let me jump back here. Now again, I'm just going to skim through it lightly and explain in very simple terms what you can do as an agent if you're dealing with sellers or listing agents that aren't being cooperative and receptive. So first, let's just clarify some terms. A real estate listing broker, or let's just say listing agent, is obligated to present an offer to the seller. That's a fiduciary obligation. Now, there is an exception. The seller can refuse or request that the listing agent stop presenting offers. So, for example, a seller goes on the market, lists their home, goes on the market, 10 offers come in the first day. The seller might get overwhelmed and say, that's it, I don't want any more. I'm going to pick one of these 10 offers. Please don't give me any more. Please don't show me any more. And they're instructing their listing agent, they're done. Now the listing agent should get that in writing because if this was all verbal, by the way, this is a side note, if it's verbal, then the seller could accuse the listing agent of withholding offers and the listing agent doesn't have proof. And the listing agent would be in violation of their fiduciary obligation by withholding offers. Now, a seller doesn't have to respond to an offer. Keep that in mind. If you're a buyer's agent and you write an offer on a for sale by owner, the seller could just ignore you. They do not have to answer you. Now, a listing agent has to do one of two things. The listing agent has to present the offer or tell you that the seller has instructed them that they're not entertaining any more offers. So let's take a look here real quick. So I should mention, so you have the NAR Code of Ethics, National Association of Realtor Code of Ethics, which addresses some of this. But then you also have MLS rules. And these are also rules that agents are obligated to follow if they're a participant in the MLS. So it's kind of weird because you have these overlapping bodies of rules. Actually, let me clarify from a kind of a high level perspective. You actually have state law. So there's state law about what you must do as a real estate agent, as a representative, a fiduciary. And then there are, as real estate licensees are obligated by law. In addition to that, we have what we're obligated by the Association of Realtors here, California Association and National Association. And then there's a separate body that we're all a member of, which is an MLS, which has their own rules. So we have three different types of rules that we must follow: state, association, and MLS. And they kind of overlap. So let's see here. So it says that a broker must affirm in writing that the offer was presented or the seller waived his right. You can demand that from a listing agent. If they can't just ignore you. And if they do, go to their broker. So you as the buyer's agent, you can ask that the listing agent sends you a rejection of offer, meaning that that the seller initials here. And that way it's proof that the seller saw your offer and declined it. But even if you don't get that, the listing agent is obligated through ethics, through being a member of the association, and it could be an ethical violation if they don't abide, to respond to you in writing and say, the seller has declined your offer or rejected your offer, or the seller is no longer presenting offers. Now, the seller's no longer reviewing offers. I'm no longer presenting offers based on the seller's request. So the listing agent must tell you this. Now, if you suspect nefarious activity, you can take this up the chain. Talk to the listing agent's broker. Try to get a copy of it in writing that the seller has declined to review any more offers. Because ultimately, if you feel a listing agent is acting unethically, you can report that listing agent to the association for violating ethics. And there can be a hearing. That whole thing can be escalated. And here we have an MLS rule. So we're just talking about NAR Code of Ethics, which is what your local association has in terms of policy and procedures that agents must follow. And there can be a complaint made through the association if you feel like a listing agent has wronged you. Now, there's also we have the MLS rules. And it again requires that members of the MLS submit to the seller all offers. So there could be a listing agent that does not do it could be in violation with they could be in violation with the state Department of Real Estate and the Association of Realtors and the MLS. A listing agent, it says here in Rule 9.4 for the MLS, that an offer must be presented as soon as possible. Now, we're going to talk about something else that comes up that's very important. What happens if you can't get a hold of a listing agent? This is a huge question. It's very important. I'll talk about that in 1 second. All right, so we have another MLS rule. Again, this is referencing this whole Section 9 is very important to what we're talking about here, because if there's a scenario that arises in your situation where you feel like you're being treated unjustly or that the listing agent's being unethical, you may be able to find that the violation takes place in the MLS rules and not simply in the California Association NAR rules. I know we're talking about a lot of rules. It's crazy, but the simple way to put it is on a state level, on state law, it's basically, is the listing agent being a proper fiduciary, or are they withholding information, important financial information from their seller? And on the MLS and association rules, it's about doing the right thing and how in policy and procedure, how it should be done properly. All right, let's jump back here so I'm not digressing too much. All right, so let's go back to, common law fiduciary duty obligates a real estate licensee to disclose. Yeah, again, fiduciary responsibility with the state. All right, and of course, the listing agent can't misrepresent any of this information. All of it must be disclosed to the seller. Now, what happens if the buyer's agent reaches out to the listing agent and is not getting a response? What if an offer is made and there's no response? This happens, and it's very frustrating. Let's give a couple of quick examples. You need to make an offer, but you can't reach the listing agent. You need to do a showing, you can't reach the listing agent, or you've made an offer and no one's responded. So here's an interesting thing that is only found in the MLS rules, which again are obligatory, and if agents don't follow it and they're a member of the MLS, they can be a violation. And that is, let me jump over here to the MLS rules real quick. That is, if you as a buyer's agent are ignored for a period of 24 hours, then it permits you to then go ahead and talk to the seller directly, to reach the seller directly. Where is that line? Here we are. Selling procedures. Paragraph 9.1. All right. After reasonable effort, no less than 24 hours, the buyer broker cannot contact the listing broker or his or her representative. So you've made a reasonable attempt for at least 24 hours to reach the listing agent or broker. And now, again, if you aren't getting anywhere with the listing agent, immediately go to the broker. Don't even waste your time. Go straight to the top. Go right to the broker, right to the office manager. Shake the tree. Make some noise. All right. However, the listing broker at his or her map may preclude such. Okay. So what this basically says is that here you're saying that if you're ignored for 24 hours to either show a property or you submit an offer, then it gives you justification to communicate directly with the seller. Now, this actually isn't permitted in the NAR Code of Ethics. It's kind of weird. They almost contradict to an extent. But the bottom line is you have justification here. If the listing broker is a member of the MLS, you can reference right here, 9.1, and say, listen, I don't know what sort of agency you run over there, but I have emailed you, I have called you, I have texted you, and I have it timestamped here of my outgoing email, of the phone number listed in MLS. I wrote down that 9:01 a.m. yesterday I left you a voicemail. 10:01 I left you a second voicemail. Now it's the following day afternoon. I'm knocking on your client's door, or I'm whatever the case may be, where you feel compelled to circumvent them. Now, I'm not necessarily advocating that you do it, but there's justification here about what sort of recourse you can do if you're being ignored. So I just want to bring this to your attention. I don't want to cause any problems where you show up at some seller's house and you find out there's been some tragedy and that's why the seller's been unavailable and the listing broker maybe was involved or something happened to them, a medical thing. I mean, give people the benefit of the doubt, and not that they're being, lazy or nefarious, but that something could have come up or there could have been something urgent. And you certainly shouldn't just stop at the listing agent, but you should immediately get the listing broker involved before you escalate to where you're contacting the seller directly. And the reason is that if you didn't explore all options before reaching out to the seller, meaning proof that you've been trying to contact the listing agent through various forms, email, text, voicemail, all that, telephone, you name it. If you can't show that, and that you reached out to the listing agent, the listing broker, and the listing office, then they could come back to you and say, you abused the system by just trying to cut us out and go right to the seller directly, and you pretended that we were unavailable when really we were. I texted you back, I'll call you in an hour or something, and then they could have a ethics claim against you for cutting out a listing agent, the representative, the duly appointed representative of the seller. So want to bring that to your attention. But there is recourse if you are truly ghosted by the listing broker at every capacity. All right, let's see here. And you know what? Actually, and this will explain it in a more succinct manner. Can a buyer's agent deliver the offer directly to the seller? It tells you here, it actually says in our Code of Ethics that it says that you shouldn't without the listing broker's consent. However, they're saying, and this is a shorter version of the tangent I just went on. However, MLS rule number 9.1 says that you can, if you've made a reasonable effort, no less than 1 day. They should say 24 hours. 1 day is a little bit less. It should be at least 24 hours, and it explains that even though there could be some contradiction, and it's kind of a double-edged sword, you do have grounds to contact a seller directly if you are being ignored. But the question is, are you really being ignored, or did you just get anxious? Because if you can't prove that you are truly ignored, you might be subject to an ethics violation. Ultimately, a seller does not have to answer any offer. And a listing agent, they're obligated through ethics to respond to you and tell you, but it's very difficult beyond that to force a seller to sign off on the rejection of offer. So I hope this helps. If you have more questions, email us at info@balboateam.com and leave comments below if you have any in the video, and I'll be happy to answer them. But I hope this helps. I know it's not easy for agents that are making lots of offers, and there's bidding wars going on and very low inventory. But this basic primer should give you the tools you need to make sure that you at least get an answer from the listing agent, and know that you have recourse if you feel like that listing agent is being unethical or not, or being dishonest with their answer. And now you know what you can do as a go around if you're ignored for at least 24 hours and you've made a reasonable effort, again, contacting the listing broker through multiple means and waiting 24 hours. You now know what you can do so that you can't just be ignored indefinitely. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this helpful.